Hey everyone, and welcome back to Gierok Farms. And today we're going to be doing cover crop on the two big flats that we just chopped. We're subsoiling it first, and now we're going to be planting rye and oats as cover crop, and I hope you guys enjoy.
So we have a 10-foot no-till. That's the number of this Great Plains. Let's talk a little bit about the drills. We have our main box, our second main box, and then we have our alfalfa box, or you could probably put Timothy in here. So really this one handles the small seed, which we're not using today. It's shut off. This one's got my grasses in it, so when I do seed my hays down and maybe waterways or some pond projects, different things, we'll use more of this one. And then this one will have my oats and my rye in it right now, but in the spring when we did the oats, it just had the oats in it. This machine is able to seed 3 different types of seed at 3 different rates at the same time, where you can shut one off and turn others on. And right now we got this side locked out because this actually only drives the second main seed box, which we're not using right now anyway. And then of course we got the other one shut off too. So we're 2 pails of oats to 1 bag of rye is what we're doing. So that's our combination here. 10
gallons of oats and then 1 40 to 50 pound bag of rye.
Yeah. So we're just using 5-gallon buckets to kind of, and that's what we did in the past. So I kept notes, and then of course as years went on, we kind of seen the results we got. I kind of like that. So what happens is the oats will grow really aggressively in the fall, and then by middle of December, whenever it really gets cold, the oats has a tendency to just die off. But the rye, they technically claim it never really stops growing no matter how cold it is. It just grows extremely slow when it's cold. And then of course in the spring, it's the first thing to green up, and it just goes crazy. By the time we plant corn, this stuff could be, well heck, it could be to your waist, you know. So in some years it's almost like gets ahead of us before we plow it down. So I think our rate would be somewhere around 70 pounds with the mix. So here, Owen here, he's been running our subsoiler. So we've been going together here, and yesterday, you will see a video of that machine and how that was all working. And then I just did some of the field, and now he's filling it in as I'm planting. So we're kind of going at the same time. It's kind of an ideal situation because first of all, with the subsoiler, it lifts the soil, and you'll see that in the previous video. And then now with this seed here, and really with rye especially, you don't want to bury it very deep. And being that it's cornfield, the stubble stands a little taller than everything else. Some places it's almost just skimming the surface, and some places it's diving in maybe an inch or so. But you don't really want to put rye in very deep at all. Rye almost needs to just get kind of, they broadcast it too, but it's really dry out here right now. There's not a lot of rain in the forecast, and the theory is with seeds when it's dry is to plant them just a little bit deeper where the moisture is. And if it's really wet, you know, maybe more shallower, you know, just because you don't want it like to rot before it germinates or have too much trouble getting out. So that's what we're doing here. And then what we'll do is we'll put this camera on different locations of this drill, and you can kind of watch this thing in action. And what I've been doing, I've been stopping every 6-8 rounds and checking my seed openers. And just for example, this is the grass openers, but they're the same. And we do not clean our oats for this here. We do clean it for the new seeding crop, but sometimes a little piece of straw or 2 or 3 would get in there and kind of interfere, and it would plug it. And it's not critical out here as long as I'm checking it. Sometimes it's got to shake things and they go down through. So this year our oats was actually pretty clean. The combine did a nice job. So
it's a pretty good crop of oats.
Yeah, it was actually, considering the year we had. Everything was really good. So that's really all that's going wrong. And I want to think the main seed box holds 25 bushel according to the book. I think at this rate, and probably have to do the math a little bit, I know I can get through this 8 acres with this loaded up. And then we got our 14-acre flat on the other side of this driveway here that we're going to do too. So when you get done doing this, you're going to go over there and continue what we were doing here. And
we're going to get going now on the seeding.
Yeah, so I got you guys up in the cab now. You can just watch that fine machine do its thing. I believe this machine's never going to go out of style. I don't believe this machine will like lose value. I think according to what history has showed us, I think this machine is worth more today than when I bought it somewhere around 10 years ago. I started out with a 7-foot. It was the exact same setup as this except 7 foot. And my theory was that small tractor could maybe pull. And I realized even though it was a 7-foot, it was too heavy for the tractors, you know, like 686 or like the other by Vin Brunt John Deere. I can pull that with my M. As long as it ain't super steep, it handled it just great. So, and we never did cover crop with that. I know those guys that did. I thought it did an okay job because again, you only have to scratch the surface. Really, I mean, it's better to put it in the soil a little bit where you got some sort of more soil contact. But yeah, and if you look close, some of the coulters will not touch. So those first coulters up on there are the no-till coulter. They'll cut the grass or the stubble or the trench, so to speak. And some of them are, you know, over here now we're kind of skimming more. And then there's a second set of coulters, which would be kind of your conventional setup, which you can see here's where the coulter went. And it was because there's a high spot here and here. And then the wheels are your gauge, so they kind of keep your height. So if you look here, for instance, this no-till one is only, it's maybe in the soil ½ inch here, and this is a low spot. And then you get over here on a high spot, this one's maybe in almost 2 inches. But that's how it is with this type of stuff. So either it's not doing anything or it's doing too much. But being it's drier, I'm still feeling pretty confident about this. I've tried it a whole bunch of different ways in the past. I was adjusting my height, and it really always all came up. It all looked pretty darn good. I mean, it is a cover crop. It's not like we're going to harvest it and got to get this bushel yield and all these kind of things. But you want to see it nice and green and a lot of foliage there to hold soils and all that. Anyway, so like when it rains, you know, the soil's still a little bit loose, and it will get these seeds into contact. They will germinate, being that they're in a lower spot. Some of the soils will work their way over to that, and still, like I said, some guys will broadcast it, and that gets you won't get as good a germination. You have to put a heavier rate on. See that soil lift. I just love that. It's not a machine you do every year. You maybe want to do that, especially on these heavy bottoms, maybe once every 4th or 5th year or something. If you get a bunch of wet years in a row, you get a lot of compaction from trying to do your harvest when it's wet, you know, because you got to do your harvest when the crop is ready to harvest. Otherwise you kind of lose your punch. Okay, back up we go. It's a very hot day today. It's in the 80s out here. Okay, a little more about cover crops. We do radishes and those. There's certain things like that, they got to be planted a little earlier in order to get your real punch out of them. We're kind of, right now we're middle of September. You know, it's after corn silage, of course. So that's when we really get our best punch out of this type of stuff. I mean, some guys will plant this after the dry grain gets took off. It's already middle of October now. You don't get quite as good of a punch out of it. Unless you get an awfully warm fall. Earlier is better. This stuff's obviously going to take good grip before it gets cold. This will look pretty green already. We'll give you guys updates as it progresses. So the theory with a cover crop is have a plant growing after your main crop has been removed. For one thing, hold the soils, and to snatch up all the nutrients that are left in the soils, and it will help with water filtration. You know, runoff is minimal or rain, and it kind of acts like a hayfield, and it's almost it's not a full rotation, but it's the closest thing you can do. Still put corn on corn, which these are heavy wet bottoms, and we don't have a lot of level land, so we try to use these for corn more than not. Ideal situation would be to put to put this in like a hay crop of some sort, or maybe 2 years, and then go back into corn again for 2 or 3 years. There's a lot of guys do soybeans. We've never personally done soybeans. They can sometimes make the soil too loose, especially on some slopes. That's usually your typical grain farmer that doesn't have cattle, so it's a soybean corn rotation versus a corn and hay and oats rotation or pasture rotation, or you can throw other things in there too. Yeah, so I love this machine. It's, once we get all done, it's actually quite dusty, but it's not, you know, it's just usually I rinse it off and grease her up, get her ready for the next year. So in the spring we basically just pull it out, put in the seed we need, and ready to go. I just stay ahead of things because on a day it's ready to go, there's usually 1,000 other things happening at the same time. That's how it is on a dairy farm. Yeah, so now we got Owen out here. He's a junior in high school. He's out here on an internship, so middle of a school day, he'll come home at lunch hour and he'll work with me in whatever I'm doing. And by God, he's admitted it himself. He's learning a lot. He's involved in things now that he never took interest in or was around for before because of how kind of deal the kid. He don't really realize what he's got going on right here in front of him where he lives. I got this field started. I had all my in-rows all done already and stuff, so he pretty much just had to follow my pattern. He's learning a lot, and I'm really proud of him with that. I like to teach, and I think it's better to teach from experience and actually doing than just telling, you know, like in an ag class. So for Owen, I think this is the first time he's done any major tillage with me, if I'm thinking back now. I know Mason kind of took on quite a bit of that for me for the last several years. And Aaron, of course, has been doing it for quite a while. So he's kind of the last one, and I think he's gonna, you know, when you're young, you adapt to it very quickly, and I think it comes more natural to you than when you're older and you're not used to doing these things for so much of your life. So he's probably only moving about 4.5 miles an hour, which not a lot can go wrong, I guess. Got a little time to think and respond to what you're going to do when you get to the end of the field and you got to turn around. Alrighty, I'm going to put you guys out on the drill. I got to check my seed level anyway. Yeah, and here you can see those fractures in the soil again. This crack here, here, here. Basically lifts it about that far, and then it comes, lays it back down. So, then that crack too, you could probably stick like a rod down there. You probably go all the way down without any friction at all. It looks like we can go a ways. And there's actually a beater in here, and it moves really slow, of course, but you can see some of this stuff looks a little separated, but it is mixing it right before it goes down into the tubes. Now this device, I know in the past somebody asked me, what is this? There used to be a little piece of foam on here, like a float, that was supposed to be attached to some device outside, so as the level went down, it would tell me how much is left in here. And it's not a real important thing on a smaller farm. It's supposed to come out this little hole, and then it, you know, full empty, kind of like a fuel gauge type thing. Then they got these brackets here. This is designed for putting weights on, like tractor weights. And then there's, I don't know, they got these brackets underneath, and I'm guessing it has something to do with whether you put John Deere or international weights on there or whatever else. But, you know, you may have to do some adjusting so they adapt to this right. I've never seen anybody do it. I'm gonna guess in some of these western states or someplace where the ground is very hard, it's something you can do, because this thing is built really heavy. I mean, you could probably drive over branches and stuff, and she'll slice it up if it had to. It's not that you would, but you know, it's pretty aggressive. A lot of trash. It'll cover crop stuff, all that, and it does have an acre count. I think the battery's dead in this thing. I tried getting it working one day, and I thought it for a little operation. It's kind of more of a nice reference when you're starting out in the world, to figure out what you're doing, how many acres for how much you use, helps you calibrate. And then on the side here, there's this crank, and that's just in a storage position. You can take that crank, put it on here. 411 rounds. I don't know if that represents a half acre or an acre. I'd have to look in the book again. But you'd maybe do, like, let's say You know, you would break it down 1/4 of that, for instance, and then you would have pails underneath all your openers. This you'd do it in the shop, and then you would find the equation to figure out an acre, and you figure out how many pounds of seed you're putting on. Because, for instance, oats and barley and rye and all these seeds, they become a little bit different. They're different, you know, shapes from different years, you know, as far as size, and it'll make a huge difference on a machine like this. It ain't like corn. Corn, that individually counts the kernel, even if it's a small kernel, as long as your drum or whatever your setup is, whatever brand you got, it just, you know, counts the kernels literally. This machine just, it's an opener. It just, the hole just becomes bigger and bigger as you adjust it to the point where you can get the rate you want on. And it's not critical if it's off a few pounds when it comes to stuff like this. It's just the idea that if you don't know what you're doing, this can cost you a fortune, putting on too much or not putting enough on and driving around and not getting what you need. Of a cover crop again, so whatever you plant, it'll grow and snatch up all these nutrients and then hold on to those nutrients over the winter, so with all the rains and everything it doesn't leach it out, and then in the spring till it down. Some people spray it. I choose not to do that. I don't know, that's not the healthiest thing for everything. It does, you still get results. I'd rather dig it in, and then of course those plants break down and feed your corn or, you know, whatever crop you put in there, especially through the first half of the summer. So that's really kind of the theory of it. These seeds, kind of like planting fertilizer. Green manure, they don't really say it that way. Like our county extension office and virtually the farm office, where if you needed any technical or any advice about certain things like this, they usually got all the data, and there's always that county agent that you can call. Just about every county that's got any kind of agriculture and has got somebody to help you with these things, and if they don't, they'll point you to somebody. But they're trying to get everybody back into these cover crops because there isn't a lot of hay and pasture anymore like there used to be. You know, the farms out here used to be all cattle farms. Maybe a third of your farm was hay and pasture, and then the rest corn, of course. But not the case anymore. So they're trying to do these cover crops, kind of make up for some of that. And there you go.